Welcome to the Infidelity Files. Yesterday was a day I'll always remember. It started like any other day, but my nephew surprised me in a way I didn't expect. I decided to make breakfast, and the sun was shining through the window, making the kitchen warm and bright. I felt great, as if nothing could go wrong. I got up, brushed my teeth, and went to the kitchen, excited to cook something tasty. I chose to make pancakes, my nephew's favorite. As I mixed the batter, I heard birds chirping and cars driving by outside. It was peaceful. When the pancakes were sizzling on the griddle, my nephew walked in, rubbing his eyes with a smile. "What's for breakfast?" he asked, clearly excited. When I told him we were having pancakes, his face lit up. We laughed together as I flipped the pancake, and the sweet smell filled the air. Just as I served the first stack, he suddenly said, "Let's go on an adventure today." I raised an eyebrow, curious about what he meant. We often went on little outings, but this felt different. He talked about exploring the nearby park and looking for hidden treasures. I felt a thrill at the idea. After breakfast, we grabbed some snacks and headed out. The sun was shining even brighter now, and I felt energized. We wandered through the park, searching for anything interesting. We found unusual rocks, pretty flowers, and even a few bugs. My nephew's excitement made the day even more fun. By the time we got home, I was tired but happy. I never expected such a simple morning to turn into a memorable adventure. Looking back, I knew I would cherish this day for a long time. I had this feeling that today was going to be a great day. As I gathered the ingredients, I could smell the fresh air coming in through the window. I started with some eggs and bacon, knowing that it was going to taste amazing. The sound of the sizzling bacon made me smile. While I cooked, I thought about how nice it was to have some quiet time in the morning before the day got busy. It was my little mother moment of peace. I was almost done cooking when I realized I forgot something important. Hot dogs. How could I forget? Hot dogs were my nephew's favorite, and he would always ask for them whenever we had breakfast together. It's like he couldn't have a meal without them. I felt a bit of panic because I knew how much he looked forward to having them. I could already imagine my nephew's face lighting up when he saw them on the table. He had this funny thing about hot dogs. It didn't matter what else was on his plate, as long as they were hot dogs. I wasn't sure why he loved them so much, but I didn't want to disappoint him. I knew I had to get them ready before he woke up. "Oh no, where are those hot dogs?" I muttered, feeling a bit stressed as I realized that Stefan, my nephew, would be coming down for breakfast any minute. I searched the kitchen frantically, hoping to find them before he showed up. Stefan loves hot dogs more than anything, and I didn't want to let him down. The thought of him asking for his favorite breakfast made me move even faster. Just as I was about to give up, I heard a calm voice behind me. "What's got you all worked up, Angel?" It startled me for a second, and I turned to see Stefan standing there. Not my mom. His smile was so relaxed, and it almost made me forget my panic. He was clearly curious about why I was so stressed. "Oh, well," I stammered, feeling embarrassed. "Please don't be upset, Stefan, but I forgot to cook your favorite hot dogs." My voice trailed off, and I felt a wave of guilt wash over me. I was so sure he would be disappointed, but I had to admit my mistake. It was so strange that morning because it was the first time I ever saw Stefan smiling like that. Usually, my nephew had a gloomy face and barely spoke to anyone except for me. His smile caught me off guard, making the moment feel unusual, but kind of nice. It was like seeing a whole different side of him, one I didn't expect. "Are you sure you're okay with no hot dogs?" I asked, still worried. "You like hot dogs, right?" I felt like I'd let him down, but I needed to know if he was really fine with it. Stefan usually made it clear when something wasn't the way he liked. "Well, yes, I do," Stefan said, his voice calm. "But you forgot to make them, so let me ask you, do you like to eat hot dogs?" His tone was curious, and he moved closer, almost too close, looking me right in the eyes. It was a strange moment, and I wasn't sure what to make of it. Yeah, hot dogs are great for breakfast," I replied, feeling my heart start to race. For some reason, I couldn't explain why, but there was definitely something in the air that made me feel nervous. Maybe it was the way Stefan was acting, or maybe it was just the oddness of the whole situation, but I knew something felt different. "There's a hot dog I want you to try," Stefan said, as his hands moved toward his package. I was surprised by what he said, because it sounded strange, and his actions were a bit odd. "But we don't have any hot dogs," I replied quickly, feeling a little nervous. "I forgot to buy some at the market," I explained, talking so fast that I almost stumbled over my words. He didn't seem to care that there were no actual hot dogs. I was making breakfast when Stefan walked into the kitchen. Something was off. His eyes, usually full of warmth, held a strange intensity. He was fidgeting with a package, a nervous energy radiating from him. "Maybe we can just have something else for breakfast," I suggested, trying to ease the tension, but he just stared at me, a peculiar smile playing on his lips. "It's not about the food," he said, his voice low. A chill ran down my spine. Something was definitely wrong. The atmosphere in the room had shifted, becoming heavy and oppressive. "Well, it's not the hot dog you'd expect," he continued, his voice laced with a strange excitement. The package in his pants seemed to grow larger by the second. Panic began to set in. My heart raced, my breath quickened. This wasn't normal. This wasn't right. Stefan grabbed me by the shoulders and turned me around. "Hold on a moment," he said, his voice serious. "I'm going to let you taste this hot dog." Before I could react, he pushed something into my backside. I felt a slimy, wet sensation, and a wave of disgust washed over me. "What the hell?" I exclaimed, twisting around to face him, but he just stood there, a smug grin plastered on his face. "Isn't it delicious?" he asked, his voice dripping with sarcasm. In that moment, I realized the horrifying truth. Stefan wasn't just acting strange. He was dangerous. I had to get away from him, and fast. I tried to pull away, but he held me tight. "Please, Stefan," I pleaded, "stop this." But he seemed oblivious to my distress, his focus solely on the strange act he was performing. As he continued, I felt a mix of disgust and a strange sense of arousal. My mind was racing, trying to make sense of the bizarre situation. I wanted to stop him, but a part of me was strangely drawn to the forbidden. He paused for a moment, his eyes filled with a strange intensity. "Here goes," he said, his voice low and menacing. And then he did the unthinkable. I was frozen in shock, my mind reeling. I wanted to scream, to run, but I was paralyzed. A wave of shame washed over me as I realized what was happening. I was enjoying it, perverse as it may seem. Stefan, sensing my submission, intensified his actions. My body responded involuntarily, a mix of disgust and pleasure. It was a horrifying and exhilarating experience, a dark secret that would forever haunt me. As the ordeal came to an end, I was left feeling both violated and strangely satisfied. The line between desire and disgust had blurred, leaving me confused and ashamed. The moment was intoxicating, a blend of pleasure and confusion. I was caught in a whirlwind of emotions, each more intense than the last. As Stefan continued, I found myself surrendering to the moment, embracing the unknown. His touch was gentle, his movements deliberate. I felt a surge of excitement, a thrill that I'd never experienced before. It was as if he was unlocking a part of me I didn't know existed. "You seem to enjoy this," he murmured, a playful glint in his eye. I couldn't deny it. The sensation was both strange and exhilarating. The line between pleasure and discomfort blurred, replaced by a sense of euphoria. "Can I show you something even better?" he asked, his voice filled with promise. Before I could respond, he lifted me into his arms. A wave of anticipation washed over me as he positioned me over the edge of the bed. His hands guided me, his touch both gentle and firm. "Taste this," he said, his voice low and seductive. I hesitated, a flicker of doubt crossing my mind, but the allure was too strong. I leaned forward, my senses heightened. As I tasted the strange concoction, a rush of pleasure coursed through me. It was both disgusting and exhilarating, a forbidden fruit that I couldn't resist. "More," I whispered, my voice barely audible. He smiled, his eyes filled with triumph. "Of course," he replied, his voice dripping with satisfaction. In that moment, I was lost, a captive of desire. I was both horrified and exhilarated, a victim and a willing participant in a twisted pleasure. I was mesmerized, my mind racing with anticipation. Stefan's eyes sparkled with excitement as he reached for his package. With a swift movement, he thrust it towards me. It was larger than I'd imagined, pulsating with a strange energy. As it entered my mouth, a wave of sensations washed over me. It was both thrilling and terrifying, a mix of pleasure and disgust. The creature within the package writhed and throbbed, its movements both powerful and delicate. I was a mere vessel, a conduit for its desires. The sensation was intense, overwhelming, and strangely addictive. As the creature released its payload, a thick, viscous liquid flooded my mouth. It was sweet, almost intoxicating. I couldn't help but moan, lost in the moment. Stefan watched with a sense of satisfaction. "Isn't it wonderful?" he asked, his voice filled with pride. I nodded, unable to form words. The experience had been both terrifying and exhilarating, a blur of sensations that I couldn't quite comprehend. As the creature finished, a sense of peace washed over me. I was exhausted, yet exhilarated. I had experienced something extraordinary, something that would forever change me. I was still reeling from the bizarre experience. Stefan, however, seemed completely unfazed. He began cleaning up the mess, his movements efficient and deliberate. As we worked together, a strange sense of intimacy grew between us. "That was fun, wasn't it?" he asked, a mischievous glint in his eye. I couldn't help but smile. "I guess so," I replied, my voice barely a whisper. There was something strangely bonding about the shared experience. It had been a bizarre, almost surreal moment, but it had brought us closer together. As he left the kitchen, I couldn't shake the feeling of euphoria. I had just experienced something extraordinary, something that defied explanation. The line between the ordinary and the extraordinary had blurred, and I was forever changed.